AEW Fight Forever is 1 month away as of today. There are a few things that this game needs to do in order to maximize its success. Regular updates and communication. And really the word that comes to mind for me is transparency. If the game has an issue, then open communication with the community is exactly what we need. It's really not that hard yet. 2K have really struggled with it for years, and they are finally getting better now, but it was one of them things where a lot of the time there'd be issues with 2K, and then they'd ignore the replies on tweets, they'd ignore, you know, the feedback that we were giving them, and it was just very frustrating, causing a lot of stress and uproar within the community. And don't get it twisted, I'm not necessarily saying that the AEW games developers have to, you know, constantly be putting out patches to please everyone's needs. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, if there is a key issue with this game, if there's a big issue with this game, getting out there and, you know, I guess damage control is what you'd call it in terms of business. But in a way, you know, just damage controlling the issue, and just getting out there and being like, okay, don't worry, we hear you, just acknowledge that you hear us and that you hear the feedback, and hey, you know, it's coming up, we're gonna patch it in the next thing, we're gonna do this thing soon, we're gonna fix this bug, or we're trying our best to fix it, we hear you. Basically, just keep the fan base in the loop, and I promise you it will go a long way with all of us. Maybe the most important thing that Fight Forever needs to do to succeed is to not compete with WWE 2K. It's one thing for me to talk about the fans and, you know, the consumer not comparing it to WWE 2K, but we can't have AEW Fight Forever trying to be WWE 2K, because that's just not what it is. And I guess what I kind of mean by that is, don't think that you have to live up to these kinds of standards. Establish your own lane and do your own thing. What I essentially mean in terms of like the pressure of trying to keep up with modern games, because it's completely different budgets, it's a completely different stage that you guys are at with this game, and that's fine. Just focus on being AEW games, and I promise we will all appreciate that. You look at things like the mini games in AEW Fight Forever, you look at the new match types that they're bringing in, these things are going to help you stand out and be a different kind of game in this market.
Mini games?
Wow, I'm really excited you tell me about career mode, I can tell you that. Yeah. And almost lost my mind when I found out that AEW Fight Forever has mini games.
How did you find out about the mini games?
You told me.
Obviously, with this next point for AEW Fight Forever, I mean, the game is already pretty much set to ship out, but one thing that will go a long way in this game and even in future games is if Road to the Elite or Road to Elite Career Mode is a memorable experience or a unique story. I mean, think back to the glory days of SmackDown vs. Raw. Everyone loves a great wrestling game story because you remember them and it adds to the legacy of the game. It's all good and well having, you know, nice gameplay and everything, but that's not what you're gonna remember about a wrestling game. No one thinks,
oh wow, WWE 2K15, that show looked great, I really enjoyed playing that.
Because, well, truthfully, that game stinks. But like 50% of the reason we remember SmackDown vs. Raw is because of the Road to WrestleMania, is because of the season mode story. And so don't get me wrong, I'm not saying, you know, in AEW Fight Forever, Road to the Elite, or, you know, I keep saying Road to the Elite, it's Road to Elite. But Road to Elite Career Mode, or whatever it's going to be, you know, maybe it's not the most in-depth thing in this game, and that's fine, you know, you're just starting out, as I said in the last video, and you can get away with it for this one. But, you know, if I were to give you future feedback for a future game, one thing that I know we all love is those unique wrestling game stories, and so if that's something you can work on, and be as creative as you want, by the way, like some of the best Road to WrestleManias are the ones that are so wacky and outlandish. I mean, who was ever gonna forget SmackDown vs. Raw 2009 with Tony waving the USA flag with John Cena, the Time Machine in SmackDown vs. Raw 2011, the time when The Undertaker was an absolute menace and tormented you in SVR 2011. I mean, for God's sake, it really easily can be argued that SmackDown vs. Raw, the entire SmackDown vs. Raw series, was the peak of wrestling gaming. And so maybe don't, you know, strain your neck in trying to be WWE 2K right at the start, because you're not gonna get there. But let's say very loosely and very hypothetically, this is the path that they'd go on in terms of quality of these games. You start off at a kind of No Mercy inspiration, and then you work your way up to a SmackDown vs. Raw type of game, just in terms of those kinds of features that we all really enjoyed. I think that could be a great kind of roadmap, you know, in the next 5 to 10 years for AEW games. I'm thinking very long term with this, but it is definitely something worth considering and thinking about, because the popularity of SmackDown vs. Raw, there was a reason why we all really enjoyed that, and I think it wouldn't be in their worst interest to kind of look at what made that successful and then apply it to their own game. Speaking of things we'll appreciate, an extensive roster will help this game go a long way. It doesn't have to all be at launch, but post-launch updates will help this game a ton. But obviously we already got confirmed that in the post-launch period period. They're going to be adding in DLC, whether that be new match types or new, arenas or new wrestlers, more importantly. All of these things are kind of going to be coming out for AEW Fight Forever, and that is really exciting and really intriguing, and so it gives them a really unique opportunity. They could have a really extensive roster in this game if they do it right. And it shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone that on day one of AEW Fight Forever, on that roster, there's going to be some omissions that are going to kind of shock you. We know that. You look at a team like FTR, I mean, the AEW Tag Team Champions right now will not be in-game on launch, or at least that's what we know as of current day. But we know that they are going to be added at a later date, and that's fine. Another thing that AEW Fight Forever really needs to do in order to succeed is to provide innovation in the wrestling game world. Again, I'm not necessarily saying that this all has to be in AEW Fight Forever. I understand the game's about to come out. But if we're talking AEW Fight Forever and beyond, I think we're all obviously quite familiar with what WWE 2K brings, and the current crop of wrestling games in general are known for certain things. And I think AEW in general has never shied away from the fact that they are an alternative wrestling company. They're an alternative wrestling product, and so why not provide that in your games as well? Take certain things that were successful in other franchises, obviously, provide a little bit of innovation, and take the next step into what these games can become. Especially as the franchise of AEW games grows, I think this would be really great. I already briefly touched on it earlier, but the whole AEW Fight Forever minigames thing is really promising. And I totally understand that some of you aren't interested in minigames, and that is perfectly fine. Some people just want to get a wrestling game to make characters and make their own shows and stories, and that's what WWE 2K is great for. But with AEW, I mean, I think it's kind of lit if they want to go down the minigames route. I think if they added minigames post-launch and, kind of keep building on it, and hey, maybe this is a bit of a pipe dream, but Mario Party, I think that there's something there. I mean, they already do kind of a, a party atmosphere, party games atmosphere. There's the party, there's stuff they do on the AEW Games YouTube channel with, like a group thing. That's what mini games are perfect for. Mario Party is perfect for that. And if they want to do that kind of thing with AEW games and with the AEW roster, I'd play that. I don't know about the rest of you, but I would play the shit out of an AEW Mario Kart kind of game, or at least some kind of mini game that is kind of like an AEW Mario Kart thing, or something along those lines. But I'm just kind of spitballing here, I don't know. The point is, I really like the idea of the pick up and play attitude of AEW Fight Forever. I do think they are going to execute on that really well, and I think mini games and releasing consistent new mini games if you can during the life cycle of the game, or even prepping ahead for future games, I think that's going to make you go a long way in terms of making AEW Fight Forever stand out as an alternative wrestling game. Because again, that's what AEW has been all about since the beginning. It's about being an alternative, so why not bring that into AEW games? I think diving more into the creation suite side of things would go a long way, as I've kind of said about a lot of things in this video, but I think it would really go a long way, whether it be a create a story type thing at some point down the line with this franchise of games, or just making create a wrestler really expansive. And maybe the key phrase here is to just let us have control, because it's one thing to kind of look at the wrestling games that we've all been playing this whole time and kind of having a element of creative freedom, but I think AEW Fight Forever could definitely build upon that and make it better than we've ever seen, whether it be with more clothing options, more hairstyles, more gimmicks, I don't know, different things like that, more options in create an arena. Obviously in AEW Fight Forever, as they begin things and build the foundations for these games, it's not going to be the most expansive thing, but if they want them to succeed and the future of their games to succeed, I think that's definitely an area, a key area that they should build upon.